Hello, good evening, and I'd like to welcome everyone to tonight's meeting. Um, I'd like to do the obligatory reminder that tonight's meeting is being webcast, and can members please ensure that they speak into the microphone so they can be heard on the webcast. As you can tell, I'm not Councillor Dunlop tonight, so I'm filling in for him. I'm going to try and not deviate from Councillor Dunlop's usual procedures here, but obviously we're one man down here tonight, so if things are running a little bit slower, then please bear with me. Thank you. Agenda item number 2 is leader's announcements. I'll hand it to Councillor Crystal.
Thanks very much, Joe. We're going well so far. Good. Item 2. So sadly, firstly, I want to report the death of former county councillor, Councillor Brian Hammond, who represented our residents in Hertford Rural on the county council for a number of years. He was chair at the county council. As some of you know, tributes were paid to him at the county council yesterday. But on behalf of everyone here at East Herts Council, we want to send our condolences to his family tonight. Secondly, I'm sure you're all aware that the government has announced the shape of future unitaries in Hertfordshire. We'll have 4 unitaries, as I'm sure you all know. We'll be joining with Broxbourne Borough Council, plus 5 wards from North Herts and 1 ward from Welwyn and Hatfield to form the new unitary. This unitary will be based on wards, and we expect to have 75 councillors representing approximately 280,000 residents. Those 75 on the unitary will be elected next May in 2027, and our district elections, we expect them to be cancelled. So we are going to be asked to stay on for a further 11 months to the 1st of April 2028 to oversee the handover to the unitary. So obviously we all signed up for 4 years when we began. We didn't expect to have to do almost 5 years. But I hope and I'd urge all of you to be prepared to stay the course and stay on for those further 11 months. I think it's really important that we do continue to serve our residents for that period, do our best for them, support our staff here, and just to carry on ensuring that our residents get very good service over that period. In terms of LGR, I know Helen is is going to give us all a briefing in early September, but I reached out to the group leaders today to say, be very happy to obviously have any meetings over the summer if they want to discuss this or need more information, so that you all can feel that you have the latest information if you don't already. Lastly, I was just going to hand over to Councillor Sarah Hopewell for a brief announcement.
Thank you, Leader. I'm pleased to share that Beam has been shortlisted for the 2026 RIBA Sterling Prize. This is the UK's most prestigious award for architecture, celebrating buildings that have made a significant contribution to the built environment. Buildings are assessed across a range of criteria, including design vision, innovation, and sustainability. Beam will be joining 5 other buildings that have been shortlisted, and the prize will be awarded in October. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Agenda item number 3, apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies for absence?
Yes, we have apologies tonight from Councillor Boylan, Councillor Defley, Councillor Dunlop, Councillor Wilson and Councillor Townsend.
Thank you. Agenda item number 4 is the minutes for the 13th of May and the 10th of June. Members, we have before us the minutes from the meetings on the 13th of May and the 10th of June. Do we have any amendments to the minutes? Okay, seeing none. I'm aware that not all members were at both meetings, so I'm going to do a vote on both minutes separately. So for the minutes on the 13th of May 2026, do I have a proposer?
I'm happy to propose.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. And do I have a seconder?
Yes, I'm happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Copley. Can I have those voting in favour of the minutes? And those against? And those abstaining? Thank you very much. Those minutes are approved. And now on to the 10th of June. Do I have a proposer for those minutes?
I'm happy to propose those as well.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. And a seconder?
Also happy to second those.
Thank you, Councillor Copley. Can I have those voting in favour of the minutes? And those voting against? And those abstaining? Thank you very much. Those minutes are approved as well. Agenda item number 5, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? Councillor Marlowe.
Yeah, I'm a trustee of the Bishop Stortford Holy Trinity Night Shelter, which is in receipt of monies from this council, and it appears obviously in the homeless strategy.
Thank you, Councillor Marlowe. Councillor Carter.
Thank you. Yes, in relation to 12A, I'm the chair of the Hertfordshire County Council's Health Scrutiny Committee, which is referenced in that.
Thank you, Councillor Carter. Councillor Williams.
In relation to the motion on Rye Meads, I used to work for the RSPB, still a member, and I'm also a member of the Lee Valley Regional Park Authority.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Are there any other declarations of interest? No, seeing none, we'll go on to agenda item number 6, petitions. We have no petitions for tonight. Agenda item number 7, public questions. We have no public questions for tonight either. Agenda item number 8, members' questions. So 7 questions have been submitted. May I remind members that both the questioner and the responding executive member must ensure that the question and the reply is succinct, and the total time allowed for consideration of any question submitted shall not exceed 15 minutes. We now publish the full responses the day after this meeting. Short verbal responses are to be encouraged so that we keep to the time limit. Any remaining questions that aren't dealt with in this time will be published on the website as soon as possible after the meeting. Taking in questions in the order submitted, question number 1, may I invite Councillor Aubrey Holt to ask their question?
Thank you, Chairman. This is directed to the Executive Member for Wellbeing. Following the shocking revelation of a near £1 million operational loss at Beam, on exactly what date did the Executive Member first become aware of the facility's finances had run out of control? Thank you.
Many thanks, Councillor Holt, for your question. I would say I first became aware that the facility's finances had, to use your words, run out of control shortly after being elected in May 2023. While I cannot pinpoint the exact date, it was at this time that I learnt that the capital investment originally agreed had been 13.5 million. However, multiple challenges meant a further 6 million was sought in 2019, followed by a further 4 million in 2022. And then, as we know, build costs continued to increase, necessitating a further 6 million, which we agreed in January 25. Well, I suspect with your question, you meant, when did I learn about the 25-26 financial year loss? It's useful to recall that the project has repeatedly faced challenging financial pressures, which have spanned both administrations. In terms of the 25-26 loss, executive members were made aware by officers of a potential loss of 500,000 at the start of May. However, after finalising the accounts and making necessary adjustments, this loss increased to 970k, and this information was shared with me on the 7th of May. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Holt, do you wish to ask a supplementary question?
I do. Thank you very much. So if, and what I understand from the response that the Executive Member has only just discovered of the near £1 million loss, it demonstrates a complete and staggering lack of day-to-day oversight on her part. This is a massive sum of local taxpayers' money, and she should have been she has clearly been asleep at the wheel. Given this profound financial incompetence under her watch, will she now take responsibility, do the right thing by East Herts residents and resign?
Thank you very much, Councillor Holt. I guess I refer you back to the early part of my response, which referenced the multiple capital requirements increases under your watch, and I don't recall at any point request for the executive member at that point being asked to resign, which suggests that you are aware that there can be multiple unexpected challenges. And as you know from the recent Audit and Governance meeting, there have been many challenges with this venue. And as you also know, a revised business plan has been drawn up, and this will be discussed in full at the next Audit and Governance meeting on the 29th of July. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hopewell. Now on to question 2. May I invite Councillor Bob Deering to ask their question?
Thank you very much, Chair. Mine is a question to Carl Britton, the Executive Member for Financial Stability. At the recent Audit and Governance meeting in relation to BEAM, it was reported that the accounting principles that apply to this council do not align with the approach that BEAM would wish to take to its accounts. I therefore asked if consideration has been given to changing the corporate owning structure of BEAM. I did not receive an answer. Please will the Executive Member for Financial Sustainability advise if any consideration has been given to this in his 3 years in post? If so, when and what conclusions were drawn?
Thank you, Councillor Deering, for the question. Although it is reasonable to say that the accounting procedures between BEAM and the council don't align, the council procedures still apply. It is true that BEAM operates differently to traditional council service areas, as it is effectively several mini businesses working along profit and loss lines in the live programme, cinema and cafe. The budgeting and forecasting process has to be slightly more dynamic to account for these things, but the same levels of transparency and controls are required. As was reported to the Audit and Governance Committee, the financial loss has primarily been caused by not generating enough income, which is nothing to do with non-alignment of accounting procedures. If the council were to consider changing the corporate ownership structure, the case for doing so would need to be clear in terms of the benefits to the bottom line. Currently, Executive is not actively exploring different ownership models, and we are minded to support the new business plan, which will be presented in full to Audit and Governance Committee on 29th of July, within the existing model of council ownership. At some point in the future, that may be revisited. However, it is best done as part of the impending local government reorganisation. The new authority will inherit other in-house arts venues alongside BEAM, and the greater scale may lead to a different delivery model. But we have not made any decisions on this at this moment in time.
Thank you, Councillor Britton. Councillor Deering, do you wish to ask a supplementary
Yes,
question?
please, Chair. I'm not quite sure that I got an answer to my question there, but I think if there was an answer, it was no, that it has not been considered. You were at that meeting. You heard the representative of BEAM say several times that the disalignment between the accounting practices that they would ordinarily observe and the accounting practices of this council are causing a problem. And that problem is feeding into the financial outturn. Frankly, I think it's astonishing that the corporate structure hasn't been considered. I'd like to know when it will be. And I'd just add by way of a PS, I'm sure you know that a number of theatres in this area are not owned by the local council. So the structure of having ownership outside the scope of the council is well established and works elsewhere. So will this be considered now as a priority?
I think the answer is no, because of local government reorganisation. I think now is just the wrong time to consider it. Yes, I'm sure there are alternatives that could be considered, but at this moment in time, there isn't going to be enough time to kind of carefully consider those alternatives and implement them before LGR. And then we'll, obviously it's really a decision for the new unitary council to take on, I think, when that is formed. It's just the wrong time.
Thank you, Councillor Britton. And now we go on to question number 3. May I invite Councillor David Jacobs to ask their question?
Thank you. My question is for the leader. Following the introduction of legislation allowing local authorities to conduct high street rental auctions to tackle persistently vacant commercial premises, which was introduced through the Levelling Up and Regeneration Act 2023, and noting that new burden funding is available to support any local schemes, what plans does the administration have for using this legislation to revive our local high streets?
Thank you very much, Councillor Jacobs. This comes under the portfolio of Councillor Clever Ward, and so I'm going to pass over to her to answer. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Jacobs. High street rental auctions can be a useful mechanism to tackle permanently vacant commercial premises where other measures have been unsuccessful. However, high streets across East Herts are not characterised by the level of vacancy of shops and retail premises seen elsewhere in the country. Savills quarterly shop vacancy monitor shows that in March 26, which are the last figures available, 13.4% of high street properties across the UK were vacant and 16.3% of shops in shopping centres were vacant. But our business rates records show that of all the shops in Bishop Stortford, not just on the high street, 8.8% are currently empty, with even fewer, 7.1% in Hertford. Elsewhere in the district, there is only one other vacancy in a town, and this would be in Buntingford. The percentage of shops vacant for over a year is only 5.5% in Bishop Stortford and 3.1% in Hertford. While I welcome Councillor Jacobs' interest in the high street rental auctions power granted under the Levelling Up and Regeneration Act, and I'm keen to see thriving high streets across our district, I don't think that the high street rental auctions power is the right sledgehammer for the nut that is East Herts shop vacancies, as it is designed for seriously economically deprived town centres where there can be the serious investment needed for such a scheme. As while there is new burdens monies available from government, the amounts available do not cover the full costs of the market analysis, consultation and legal work necessary to simply get to the point of designating a high street for intervention. They only cover the relief costs of the relet costs. Our intervention with COVID money and then UK SPF resources between 2021 and 2025 provided 84 new premises grants to businesses, and licensing and economic development officers maintain regular contact with businesses to help maintain the vibrancy of our high streets. And also, I chair the partnership forums in both Bishop Stortford and Buntingford, plus also attend the Hertford Business Breakfasts.
Thank you. Councillor Jacobs, do you have a supplementary question?
I've been trying to frame my disappointment and dismay at that response into a question, but I'm afraid I haven't succeeded, so I'm just going to have to leave it there. Sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Jacobs. And that leads us to question number 4. May I invite Councillor Chris Hart to ask their question?
This is for Councillor Vicky Glover Ward. In the absence of any upgrades to Rymead sewage treatment work, sorry, my computer's gone a bit on, in the current Thames Water Business Plan to 2030, what robust measures does East Herts District Council intend to enforce to the planning permission at Gilston that no occupation shall take place until such upgrades are in place?
In terms of the implications of condition 21, first occupations in Village 1, because this does not apply to Village 7, are currently projected for early 2029. Once the unitary is in place and a new exec for planning is also in place, I'm sure they will take a prudent approach in 2029, but it is worth noting that Condition 21 does not require East Herts Council to secure or deliver upgrades to Rymead sewage treatment works. Responsibility for wastewater infrastructure rests with Thames Water as the statutory sewage undertaker. The condition applies to Village 1 to 6 and requires evidence that appropriate wastewater infrastructure arrangements are in place before occupation occurs. This may be demonstrated either through confirmation that the necessary upgrades have been completed or through an agreed phasing plan with Thames Water, identifying how capacity will be provided to serve the development as it is rolled out, because we are not getting 10,000 occupations on day one. The developer has entered into infrastructure and connection agreements with Thames Water. While these are private contractual arrangements, the council will require satisfactory evidence from the developer and Thames Water before discharging the relevant parts of Condition 21. The condition can be discharged on a phased basis to reflect the long-term delivery of the Gilston area. If the required evidence is not provided, the condition cannot be discharged and occupation of the relevant development would be contrary to the planning permission, at which point the council would have recourse to its planning enforcement powers should it choose to use them. It is also worth noting that, as was pointed out at the Gilston Community Forum, where we discussed sewage and water quite a lot, generally people don't want to occupy homes that are not connected to a sewer, as they rather like having baths and showers. And basically Thames Water won't connect up unless they have the capacity.
Thank you very much. That was a very full and comprehensive answer. I do realise that East Herts District Council don't have the powers to produce a sewage network, though. But I'm just curious, it was more the how of it rather than, I understand what the process is, but obviously you talked about having a phasing plan.
Councillor Hart, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify something. So it's more the how of it, really, I was asking, as opposed to the what of it. So I kind of understood the what of it, really.
I would generally expect that on a condition like this, if there were, let's say, 400 homes coming forward per year, there would be something that Thames Water show how their infrastructure has been upgraded to meet that additional load that will be on their sewage works. And that will be coming through the developers and also delivered to show that the conditions have been met. I wouldn't expect them to put in the capacity for 10,000 homes, simply because in discussions with Thames Water, an overcapacity sewage works is really inefficient and actually causes more problems than it's worth, because the biology and the microbes that they use to break it down don't work as well if you've got more space and not enough sewage, if that makes sense. So I would expect that there would be a phasing plan to meet the capacity required.
Thank you, Councillor Glover-Ward. I'm afraid we don't have any more time for any further members' questions, but as a reminder, all responses will be published on the website the next day. And we move on to agenda item number 9. It's the executive report for the 14th of July 2026. And may I invite the leader to present this report?
Thank you, Chair. So since we all last met here on the 10th of June, we've had one executive committee meeting on the 14th of July, and 2 papers passed there have come to full council tonight. The first is the annual report 2025-26, an update of the priorities in our corporate plan. The exec were asked to review progress against our LEAF priorities in that plan and recommend any changes. Prior to exec, this paper went to overview and scrutiny, where members had a chance to have a deeper dive into the report, and we listened to comments and made some small changes to priorities for this year, which are laid out in the appendix and in the paper itself. I'm happy to propose this paper.
Thank you, Councillor Crystal. And do we have a seconder? Councillor Goldspink?
Yes, indeed. I'm happy to second this. Thank you.
Thank you. Does any member wish to comment or ask a question? Okay, seeing none. This is the first item in the executive report on which there are 2 recommendations. The recommendations A and B are detailed on page 38. The recommendation to Council is that A, the Council review performance over the 2025-26 year, and B, that the Council adopt the refreshed LEAF priorities for 2026-27 and beyond. That's sections 2.8 to 2.11. Members, could we have a show of hands as to whether you're in favour of 4? And those against? And those abstaining? Thank you. That motion is carried. And now we go to agenda item 9B, the Homelessness and Rough Sleeping Strategy 2026 to 2031. And I go to Councillor Miney Goldspink.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm pleased to present the draft, the Homelessness and Rough Sleeping Review and Strategy 2026 to 2031, and to ask for its approval and adoption by this council. It can be found on page 63 of the agenda pack. Incidentally, I was really pleased on Monday to hear that the country's new Prime Minister announced that his very first action would be to take steps to end rough sleeping. I thought that was really good news. Now, tonight, the report presents the draft version of the Homelessness and Rough Sleeping Review and Strategy 2026 to 31 for Council's approval, following the presentation to Overview and Scrutiny Committee on the 9th of June 2026 and Executive on the 14th of July. And the recommendation is that the draft Homelessness and Rough Sleeping Review and Strategy, as detailed in Appendix A, be approved. The background is that under the Homelessness Act of 2002, all local authorities are required to carry out a homelessness review and to develop and publish a strategy based on the review every 5 years. East Herts published its first homelessness strategy in July 2003. This one tonight is the 5th strategy and is due to run from 2026 to March 2031. The Homelessness Act in 2002 placed enhanced duties on local authorities to assist homeless and potentially homeless people. One of the key aims of the Act was to ensure that housing authorities should take a comprehensive and strategic approach to managing and preventing homelessness in their districts. The Council's last homelessness strategy was adopted and published in 2019, and the Council and its partners have made significant progress on providing and improving services to those people who are homeless or potentially homeless. The strategy includes a section on the achievements by the Council and its partners to improve the homeless services provided since the last strategy was adopted. Much has changed both locally and nationally since the last homelessness strategy was adopted. The most significant recent changes include the Renters' Rights Act 2025 and a national plan to end homelessness published in December 2025. The latter includes an outcomes framework for local authorities and the requirement for areas to have local targets to move from a crisis response to one focused on prevention. The draft strategy has been developed. This has 5 objectives around which the housing service will build its delivery plan. The delivery plan will shape the emphasis of the housing options team's work for the next 5 years. The strategic priorities in the strategy are: 1, to continue to prevent and relieve homelessness at the earliest opportunity. 2, to increase temporary accommodation options to improve suitability and sustainability, thus reducing the use of bed and breakfast accommodation. 3, to continue to improve the pathways in and out of supported housing and the support available to vulnerable single people. 4, maximize the availability of affordable housing. 5, continue to provide support to reduce rough sleeping, and where this does occur, ensure it is brief and not reoccurring. The draft strategy was published for consultation. Customers of the Homeless Service were specifically asked to contribute as they had insight into any gaps in service provision they experienced and what could have been done which might have prevented their homelessness. All the responses to the consultation were considered. The responses have been used to inform the strategy and the action plan for 2026-27. A copy of the updated strategy is attached at Appendix A. An equalities impact assessment has also been prepared for the strategy and included at Appendix B. I would like to thank all the officers and everybody who has been involved in drafting this strategy. It is a large, detailed document, and it has involved a considerable amount of time and hard work. So thank you very much to everybody who contributed. The primary ambition of the strategy is prevention, but when this is not feasible, it is to offer as much help and support as possible. Sadly, since 2020, there has been a big increase in the numbers of homeless households asking the council for help. Some of them have experienced no-fault eviction from the private sector. Some have fled from domestic abuse. Many of the households have very complicated support needs and are vulnerable, often with mental health or addiction problems.
Councillor Goldspring, I'm afraid we're coming up to the 5-minute mark, so if you could
Oh,
withdraw
all
your
right,
remarks to
all right.
close. Thank you.
It's worth noting, I'm just nearly finishing, there were considerable achievements during the period of the previous strategy, most notably obtaining funding for 2 support workers, one as a full-time rough sleeping coordinator and the other as a single-person support officer. There's also the development of a county-wide protocol. And finally, good collaboration was formed with partners such as HCC, Probation Service, Registered Housing Providers, Change, Grow Life and Mind. The new strategy builds on all this good work. The final section of the strategy is the action plan and its monitoring. Overall, I believe it to be an excellent strategy and I commend it to the Council. I therefore propose recommendation A as shown on page 37 or 58. I'm sorry, I've lost the page number, but I propose the recommendation and ask the adoption of this strategy.
Thank you, Councillor Goldspink. Do we have a seconder for the proposal? Thank you, Councillor Dar.
Yes, I'm happy to second it.
Thank you, Councillor Dar. Does any member wish to comment or ask a question? Councillor Jacobs.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, thank you, Marnie, for bringing this item before ONS. Hopefully you found the input from the committee useful. I had a couple of questions and one comment. The questions are, how many responses were received from the consultation on this strategy prior to its publication? And what changes were made to the strategy and the action plan in the light of those responses? Those are the questions. My comment was, you've already referenced the Prime Minister's statement on rough sleeping earlier this week. Would you consider incorporating that comment in the foreword to this strategy? Because I suspect that whatever comes out of the government in terms of detail on that will need to be incorporated into what we're saying here.
Yes, Councillor Goldspink.
Thank you, Chair. That's an interesting suggestion. Yes, I'll certainly consider it. It might add more weight, I think. Yes, so thank you for that idea. The questions, there were 41 responses online and 14 users who consulted.
I'm terribly sorry, Councillor Goldspink. I forgot your right to reply at the end of the debate. So if we're able to take the questions and comments, and you'll be able to summate at the end there. Apologies for that. Yeah. Sorry, members. Do we have any other questions or comments? Councillor Vicky Smith.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to Councillor Goldspink. I think this is a really excellent strategy. One thing I wanted to bring up was the huge increase in domestic violence cases, which seems to be apparent from this. And I wanted to sort of query, if prevention is really our priority, how much are we working consistently with domestic violence support groups and charities? Because those are the kind of families that really need to be supported before they are made homeless. And in the role that I do, sort of outside of the council, I hear often from families who can't receive assistance for domestic violence and can't receive housing support until they are homeless. So they're often stuck in a catch-22 situation. And for a lot of those families, refuges are not always appropriate, particularly those families with children with complex additional needs. Refuges are just not appropriate places for them to go. I also just wanted to bring up that the equalities impact statement. I'm concerned that children aren't always reflected fully, and the age demographic breakdown there doesn't actually show the age of children. It doesn't show anybody below the age of 16. So I think in terms of monitoring for the future, it would be a really good idea just to keep an eye on how many children we're assisting and what the breakdown of those children is, and probably what co-presenting needs they have as well, to just keep children at the forefront of what we're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any further questions and comments? Councillor Crystal.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I know, Marnie, you recognise the work done by officers. I just wanted to thank you as well, because you've done an incredible amount of work on this, which is really appreciated. But obviously, thanks to Jonathan and to Catherine as well. Yeah, just want to say thank you for a great piece of work.
Thank you. Councillor McAndrew.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Naomi, for this. We fully support your paper. You mentioned that the new Prime Minister is going to eliminate the homelessness list, but I seem to recall that the Mayor of Manchester was going to do that in Manchester, but the figures doubled under his term of office. Do you have confidence in the new Prime Minister?
Any further questions and comments? Okay, seeing none, I'll hand back to Councillor Dahl. Did you preserve your right to speak?
I mean, I just want to say thank you as well to Marnie for a great report and the officers. And I particularly noticed, as well as domestic abuse, the high incidence of mental health issues connected with people who are homeless. And I know we discussed it at exec, but the importance of having mechanisms to address that issue when supporting homeless people. Thank you.
Councillor Devonshire, yeah, no, I'm afraid we've ended the debate for now, seeing none. So we'll go back to Councillor Goldspink.
All right, thank you, Chairman. Now, where to begin? Councillor Jacobs was asking about the responses which we've had. 41 responses online, and 14 were users who were consulted, 55 in total. The online was done through One Voice platform, which shows everyone who engages, but not necessarily responding. And I think 538 people were aware, and 217 read more than one page. So there was a good response. There were 34 comments and suggestions made. They were all considered. 29 were about issues which had already been covered. Most frequent comments were about affordability and availability. Also about making sure that there was help for those who were suffering from domestic abuse and those with complex needs. There were 5 other comments. 2 suggested changes in government policies, immigration and welfare legislation. So that is outside the scope of our strategy. Another just recommending use any type of accommodation, regardless of its quality. Well, East Herts would not really countenance putting people in substandard accommodation. There were 2 comments which fed into the action plan. One was more support for private landlords to sustain tenancies. And then another one, more assistance to help with the cost of living by training in healthy economic food meals. This is the action plan. And of course, now that we have a full-time worker who can help with people who are suffering from homelessness or possible homelessness, that can be covered by that. Councillor Vickers-Smith, working in collaboration, yes, indeed, and that was mentioned, and we do certainly work with many of the charities, with the county council workers, yes. We're very happy to work with the charities sector. So yes, we are doing that. The equalities impact on children, could we consider them more? I think that is a good idea, and would be happy to include that in the strategy. Because yes, children are so important. Do I have confidence in the Prime Minister? Well, I'm not sure yet. But when he was in Manchester, yes, he did try to tackle rough sleeping, yes. And for a while he was successful, but then after the pandemic, I think it did rise again. So I think he admitted himself he was not 100% successful. But what he has said this time it is going to be a top priority to attempt to try to reduce rough sleeping. He was not saying he was going to reduce homelessness. He said he was going to tackle rough sleeping and try to eliminate that. So yes, I do hope he will be successful. I lost track now. There was another mechanism. Oh yes, a mechanism for involving all the charities and the other partners who collaborate. We have now set up on the website a portal so that anybody who's concerned about people who might possibly be at risk of being homeless or have problems can be referred directly through that. And I think that will help for getting the right help to the people who need it. So I hope that was all the questions. Yes, so thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Goldspink. Members, this is the second item in the executive report on which there is a recommendation. The recommendation A is detailed on page number 58. The recommendation to Council is that the draft Homelessness and Rough Sleeping Review and Strategy 2026 to 2031, as detailed in Appendix A, be approved. Members, can we show our hands of whether you're in favour for? And those against? And those abstaining? Thank you, that is carried. And then we go on to agenda item number 10, review of the Constitution. I invite Councillor Calvin Horner, who's the chair of the Member Constitution Review Group, to present the report.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So I present this report on behalf of the Member Constitution Review Group. And the report has two distinct sections. The first relates to questions by members of the public and elected members at full council meetings, which was discussed at a recent meeting of the Constitution Review Group. The group proposes two changes in order to allow for more questions to be dealt with. These include a slight increase in the time allowed for questions from 15 to 20 minutes. In allowing for an increase in time, there has to be a balance struck between extending question time and the amount of time available to conduct the other business of the meeting. And we believe this is a sensible increase in time, as we have recently had some very long meetings, but also there have been questions that haven't been able to be asked actually in the meeting. Making this change does not preclude either the chair exercising their discretion to extend it further if the length of the agenda allows, or revisiting the time period in future. There are also limitations on the length of time allowed for questions and answers, to 1 minute per question and supplementary question, and 2 minutes to answer the original question and 1 minute for the supplementary. Where a longer answer is required, this can be given in writing, with a shorter précis given in the meeting. This is aimed at providing a structure really around the injunction that comes from the chair to be succinct, for both members to be succinct both in asking and answering questions. So together these rules would ensure that a minimum of 4 questions could be answered. We had 5 today, but a minimum could be answered with a higher average than we've had recently, because 4 has been that average. The second section of the report relates to matters over which East Herts Council has no discretion, as they arise either from changes in job titles and responsibilities that need to be reflected in the Constitution, or in the case of pensions, a change in the law that allows councillors to be enrolled in the local government pension scheme, which was previously prohibited both in law and in our Constitution. So I commend this report to the Chamber.
Thank you, Councillor Horner. Do we have a seconder for this? Councillor Watson.
I'm happy to second this.
Thank you very much. Does any member wish to comment or ask a question? Councillor Eric Botmaster.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I was at the review meeting, and I think particularly around the members and public questions, very sensible to incorporate that flexibility. Because it will enable us to get through more questions, hopefully, by being sharper with the questions and responses. I think it was kind of picked up by Calvin. The other sense of the meeting was that by having potentially 20 minutes for public and for member questions, at the chairman's discretion, for example, as today, where we have no public questions and more member questions, there could be flexibility to increase the time or use some of that time and vice versa. So I think that would work. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Vicky Glover-Ward.
In my area, I get asked some quite complicated questions about some quite complicated subjects. Me answering in 2 minutes will not be particularly easy, and it will also, I think, mean that I get asked supplementary questions that are already answered in the long answer, and that the questioner would have got and been able to ask a more pertinent question had I been given a little bit more time. Can I suggest that the complication of the questions is looked at so that I'm not asked 3 or 4 part questions in the first place, and also because that will allow a 2-minute answer and a full answer.
Thank you. Councillor Jacobs.
Thank you, Chair. Two points. My understanding was that the Constitutional Review Group was reconvened to look at the possibility of introducing a hard stop to council at a certain point in the evening on the back of the very long meeting we had earlier this year. Was that considered by the review group? And my second question is regarding the language and the gender specific language. Early on in the life of this council, we agreed to change the description of the chairman of subcommittees to chair. And I've noticed that in this document that's in the pack, that language is not consistently applied. So I know the chair of the council remains a chairman, wrongly, but the chairs of subcommittees should be described as such rather than as chairman. So I ask that be looked at, please.
Thank you, Councillor Jacobs. Councillor Demont.
Joe, so one little comment and a question as well for Calvin. So one short question would be, how could a member bring something forward to the Constitution Group if they wanted it looked at? That's one part of it. But also, I suppose, a comment. I think this is good that we are looking at allowing more questions to be heard. We should try and remember the reason we have these questions. The object of the exercise to hit a time target. You know, they're not targets either. They're maximums. Because the most important thing is that people can come in this chamber and they can ask questions of whether they be members or whether they be members of the public. And so I would always ask the chair, it's not the chair's role to try and stick to that hard limit. The job of what we do here is to let people come and have access to us to raise things. And I think there is ample opportunity to give the technical answers, if it's a technical answer they want in writing. What people want to do when they're asking questions is they want to make a point public. And I think that's the really important point here. And another comment, I didn't know that exec members, when they're presenting a paper, had a time limit either. Is that a thing? Mine, it was asked to stop at 5 minutes. 7 years, I've never had anyone. I've been told they had to stop.
Yeah, to confirm, in the Constitution it says all speeches will be a time limit of 5 minutes.
Okay.
Do we have any other questions or comments from members? Councillor Crystal, then we'll go to Councillor Hart.
Yeah, it's just a comment. Thank you, Chair. Just a comment. I just really wanted to thank all the members of the Member Constitutional Review Group. I appreciate it. Sometimes things can be quite not the most exciting, should we say, but it's really, really important that we do have that opportunity and a good discussion in that group. So thank you very much, and thanks, Calvin.
Thank you, Councillor Hart.
It was just a follow up on Vicky's points about the length of questions, and it is difficult if the question you're asking is quite complicated and demands quite a detailed response. I'm not sure answering supplementaries alongside the primary question is the answer, because with the best will in the world, it is actually quite difficult to take it all in. So sometimes it is better to chunk things down, but I do think we need to allow enough time for more complex questions to be answered in full, to give justice to the member who's answering the question, and give justice to the person who's asking it.
Thank you, Councillor Hart. Do we have any other
right of reply?
Right. No, I think Councillor Watson second, so has the right of reply there.
No, no, no. I'll right to reply to the point made about my speech.
Give me 1 second. Okay, Councillor Glover-Ward.
Just to clarify, I don't mean to have the supplementary question at the same time as the first question. I mean to have it after. I was just saying that the supplementary question should follow on from the answer, and it takes away from the member's right to ask a detailed supplementary question if it's already contained in the written bit, but I haven't had time to speak about it.
Thank you, Councillor Glover-Ward. Do we have any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none. Councillor Watson?
I've got nothing else to add to that.
Thank you, Councillor Watson and Councillor Horner.
Yes, just to come back on a couple of questions. At the meeting that we held when we discussed these things, the two matters that Councillor Jacobs referred to were not actually part of our agenda on that occasion, but we will be meeting again, and we can look at those at a subsequent meeting. I think one, if you can remind me what they were, Councillor Jacobs, perhaps after the meeting. If there are other matters, I know Councillor Dumont asked if there were other matters for the Constitution Review Group, how could they be raised? I would refer that to officers actually, and say that either by contacting Jonathan or Stephanie, they can then get it onto the agenda for the review group. So.
Thank you, Councillor Horner. Members, there are two recommendations, A and B, on page 94 of the agenda pack. Recommendations for Council: A, to approve changes to procedures relating to questions by the public and members' questions by members submitted to Council, as summarised in paragraph 2.3 of this report and set out in detail in Appendix A. And B, to note, as required by the Constitution, the changes made to remove inconsistency and ambiguity by the monitoring officer are summarised in paragraph 2.4 of this report and set out in Appendix B. Members, could we have a show of hands as to whether you're in favour for? And those against? And those abstaining? Thank you. This is carried. And now we go to agenda item number 11, reports by members appointed to outside bodies for the civic year 2025-26, follow-up report. I invite Councillor Ben Crystal, Leader of the Council, to present the report.
Thank you, Chair. So back in the 13th of May this year, we presented reports by members appointed to outside bodies for the 2025-2026 year to Council. Unfortunately, some reports were missing at the time, as you may well recall. This paper simply corrects that. Those papers are attached as an appendix, I believe. I'm happy to propose or to take any questions.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Swainston.
Thank you. Yes, I'm happy to second.
Thank you. Does any member wish to comment or ask a question? Councillor Andrews.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I'm very pleased this has come forward. Excuse me, members will recall that I raised at that meeting that a couple of the reports were missing, and I felt personally that they were organisations that were probably of particular interest to residents of East Herts, and I'm very grateful for the leader for bringing them forward as he promised. But I did notice then, and I've noticed again now, that on occasions the members that have been appointed have not made the meetings, not been able to get there, and I quite understand that. Having been on outside bodies for 25, 30 years, it does happen. But could I ask what philosophy has been adopted by the administration to ensure that when a member can't attend a meeting of an outside body, a deputation is put in place? Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments or questions? Councillor Deering.
Thank you very much, Chair. A related question. Yes, it was disappointing that not all these reports came through last time. And as Councillor Andrews just said, both last time and this time, some of the reports make it explicit as to actual attendance at the meetings, but some of them don't. And I would like to suggest that every report of outside bodies makes it explicit as to the extent to which the member has or has not attended all the requisite meetings, please.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay, seeing none. Councillor Swainston?
I don't believe I need to add anything.
Thank you, Councillor Swainston. We'll go back to Councillor Crystal.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the questions. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I think the philosophy is if you're not going to be able to attend, you let us know, and we remind the sub so that they can get along. I think that absolutely makes sense. We want to get our councillors there as representatives of the council to get our voice heard. And I think that's worth reminding councillors, and I'm happy to send out a reminder again, perhaps starting in September. On Bob's question, yeah, I mean, I think that's a good question. I know I've been guilty of absence on a number of committees, and I think actually that would be a helpful thing to kind of focus the mind and make sure that we are aware of those that aren't being attended.
Thank you, Councillor Crystal. Members, there is one recommendation A on page 121 of the agenda pack. The recommendations for Council is that additional reports of members appointed to outside bodies for the 2025-2026 civic year be received and noted. Members, could you raise your hands to indicate whether you are in favour or against? Those in for? And those against? And those abstaining? Thank you. That is carried. And now we go to agenda item number 12, motions on notice. There are 3 motions on notice that have been submitted. Motion 12A, motion against the future procurement of Palantir in public sector contracts in East Herts. I invite Councillor Alex Starr to present her motion on notice.
Thank you, Chair. Whilst I can acknowledge that we might in this chamber not all be equally so concerned about the links of this US-based company to the actions of the Israeli government over the past few years, or the actions of ICE in America, or indeed the morally dubious views of the founders of Palantir, Peter Thiel and Alex Karp, you should be really concerned about the following, all equally. Data management, data purposes and data protection in this product are very unclear, and therefore the safety of our residents' personal and sensitive data is at risk. There are better locally developed tools in the UK to use. Let's boost our economy by buying British, not relying on the products coming out of the increasingly erratic United States of America with its whimsical tariffs. In my personal network, I have noticed people talking about the current propensity of American companies to buy up British products and companies and not invest in improving them, but just generate money from them as cash cows, to use marketing terms, or to increase the share value of their company. There is nothing coming out of the mouths of the leaders of Palantir that suggests they have any sincerity in investing in the long-term needs of the best product ever developed by the British state, our National Health Service. The main requests in this motion are around requesting the local health bodies to report back exactly where they have got to with using Palantir in their various organisations. Something which they have provided little information on so far, despite previous requests from members of the Health Scrutiny Panel at Hertfordshire County Council. This is not good enough. As councillors, we have a duty to advocate on behalf of our residents and get this information out in the open. I hope you will support me in voting for this motion. As you will have seen from the demonstration prior to the meeting, this issue is of great concern to our residents. Moreover, you will see a petition raised by residents on the HCC portal in the next day or so. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dar. Councillor Vicky Smith, would you like to speak as seconder?
Thank you. I'm happy to second, and I'll reserve my right to speak. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Vicky Smith. Members, do we have any questions or comments? Councillor Devonshire.
Thank you, Chair. Palantir do not have any contracts with East Herts District Council whatsoever. In the past, I've tried to bring forward some motions to this council and was told by Democratic Services that if East Herts have no involvement or relevance in the motion, you're not allowed to bring the motion before this council. So my question is, why was this motion allowed?
Thank you. Do we have any other questions? Councillor Parsard-Wyatt, and then we'll go to Councillor McAndrew.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you to the proposer and seconder for the motion. I am opposed to this motion on 4 grounds. One, in agreement with Councillor Devonshire, I don't believe it's relevant to East Herts. 2, I believe it relies on information that is outdated and in places inaccurate. 3, it overlooks the reported benefits of Palantir systems. And 4, underneath all of it, as outlined in your opening, this is really a motion about foreign policy, not local issues. And I want to take each of those points in turn. Firstly, on relevance, this council does not commission the NHS Federated Data Platform. We don't procure for Hertfordshire Police. We do not run the county council systems. We have no role and no accountability in this. It is simply not our decision to make. Whatever the outcome of this motion tonight, it will not get Palantir out of the NHS as the proponents may wish. What this motion asks is that we write a dozen letters about systems this council has not bought and does not use to people who do use them and understand them considerably better than we do. Secondly, on accuracy, this motion states that the £330 million NHS contract was awarded with no competitive tender. That is not true. An open procurement process was run by NHS England and Palantir was selected ahead of Oracle and IBM. That process was confirmed to MPs by the Health Minister in May. If we pass this motion tonight, we put that false claim in writing on this council's letterhead to people who will know it is wrong. That is a risk to this council's reputation and our relationship with the recipients of those letters. The motion also says that a fewer than a quarter of trusts, NHS trusts, were using the platform. That figure is from the end of 2024, so is also now outdated. Last month, NHS England published stats showing there are now 170 trusts signed up, of which 139 are live. Of those, 137, or 99% for those who are quick on maths, are reporting benefits. The motion says the position on data protection is unclear, and we certainly all value data protection, but unfortunately I disagree. In law, Palantir is recognised as a data processor, not a data controller. The NHS and any other customer of Palantir decides what data is used, for what purpose, and for how long. And for UK customers, that data sits on UK servers, where access is logged and auditable. So the motion is littered with inaccuracies, and I thought it was helpful to bring some additional light on the benefits of Palantir's systems. And this is from NHS England's own figures as reported. 111,000 additional operations, 348,000 patients discharged from hospital sooner, and close to 1 million people taken off waiting lists who didn't need to be on them, so that those who genuinely needed care faster could be seen faster. Which of these outcomes are we being asked to reverse? Do we think that our residents should wait longer on hospital waiting lists just because a few people don't like a company whose systems are delivering measurable improvements to our health service? And on policing, the same question. These systems reduce a domestic violence check from an hour down to just 10 minutes. In 1 year, that meant approximately 1,000 women were warned that they may be at risk of violence from their partner who had a history of it. That is 1,000 women potentially protected from harm. Are we seriously being asked in this motion to write letters campaigning against that? This motion also claims Palantir stifles British innovation, but that claim is not substantiated. Palantir employs over 1,000 people in the UK. Core parts of the platform were built here by British engineers, and last September they signed a partnership with the MOD, which included a commitment of up to £1.5 billion investment into the UK, 350 skilled jobs, and a mentoring programme for startups and small firms precisely to drive that innovation ecosystem. I encourage colleagues to support British innovation, but as far as I can see it, this motion does the opposite. Moreover, as I said, I fear this motion is not about East Herts or our residents. It is instead about the United States and Israel and foreign policy. Now, those are serious matters, but they are matters for Parliament. No emotional letter that this council sends will alter US immigration policy or the course of events in the Middle East as much as members may wish otherwise. What this motion will do is put on record this council campaigning against systems that are demonstrably helping residents as patients and would-be victims in order to make a point about foreign policy that we have no power to affect. So the motion is inaccurate, It deliberately ignores the benefits of Palantir's systems, and it seems to be more about opining on foreign policy than improving local services for those living in East Herts, the latter of which is our actual role here. For those reasons, I'll be voting against the motion, and I encourage all members to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Parsard-Wyatt. Councillor McAndrew.
Thank you, Chair. I've got to agree with both the previous speakers, as I too have put motions in and told they had nothing to do with the East Herts District Council. It was national agenda. Now, I'm trying to understand how this motion relates to East Herts District Council. We don't get involved with the NHS, and I would like somebody to explain how this motion relates to East Herts District Council rather than a national Westminster parliamentary debate. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Butcher.
Thank you. I think there are a couple of points worth making in favour of this motion, which is an excellent and well-timed one. Firstly, while some of those opposite may be sanguine about the abuse and misuse and mishandling of data by Palantir, the Swiss government is certainly not. And Palantir having absolutely failed in any way to demonstrate that they were able to keep Swiss data safe, and in Switzerland, Palantir are banned from competing for Swiss government contracts. So, whatever your opinion might be, you're up against the reality of a government which takes privacy extremely seriously indeed. The second point is that the geniuses at Palantir and their military AI targeting systems brought us the mass murder of 160 Iranian schoolgirls because they were unable to determine that the building the girls were in had ceased to be a Republican Guard facility 10 years earlier. These people are simply absolutely untrustworthy. The motion is absolutely right, and I will support it wholeheartedly.
Thank you, Councillor Butcher. Before we go any further, and before I go to Councillor Holt, I know Councillor Hart, you're next. Jonathan Gill would like to explain as to why the motion has been accepted.
Yes, can I just help the discussion in looking at motions that come forward? One's guided by the Constitution of the Council, which states that motions must be about matters for which the Council has responsibility. Just to repeat that point, that motions must be about matters for which the Council has a responsibility or which affect the area. Within the motion, and I am aware, and the Chair is aware that comments perhaps are straying away from this, the motion does talk about Palantir's services for the NHS, services which are provided to East Herts residents, and importantly, that East Herts Council has a role in health scrutiny. There is a health scrutiny committee which is convened, committee convened by Hertfordshire County Council, to which East Herts has a nomination and has the ability to put things forward and to influence the agenda of that scrutiny. And there is a legitimate and clear role for East Herts in matters which relate to those services. And it is indeed for this chamber to debate that and come to a view.
Thank you, Jonathan. And once again, just a reminder for members for discussion to stay on the motion that we have before us. Carrying on, Councillor Holt.
Thank you, Chairman. Angus, I think, has summed up well many of the concerns that us on this side of the chamber share. So I don't wish to repeat those in detail. But what I will say, and even though we've just heard that from officers, is that I share fundamental concerns that this is not relevant for this council. Instead, it focuses on contracts completely out of our control and to what I see as unconnected authorities. We have absolutely no jurisdiction over the Ministry of Defence, nor over the procurement of IT systems for the NHS, or with contracts for the police. And although we've had motions in the past that call on authorities to act, such as the winter fuel allowance, a motion I brought to this chamber a few years ago, this impacted thousands of residents here in East Herts. This was a tangible crisis for our residents. This motion is entirely different. It's a debate on the back-end software architecture of the NHS and the Ministry of Defence's procurement rules. It is an abstract, ideological issue and does not in any way affect the day-to-day lives of our East Herts residents. Second, if this council is going to spend time passing and debating such motions, the texts must at least be factually correct. And as Angus said, this motion is not. And one example which Angus raised, I won't go into detail again, is the £33 million NHS contract, which has been stated was not awarded on a competitive contract, and that is fundamentally untrue. So we cannot ask councillors to put their names to a motion that gets basic public procurement facts wrong. Voting for a factually inadequate motion on a topic which we have zero authority over, or has no direct relevance to our residents, does a disservice to East Herts residents. And we, therefore, will not be voting for this motion tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Holt. Councillor Hart.
It's just to clarify one point. I mean, just to let you know, I will be supporting the motion, but that's not to detract from the arguments on the other side of the fence. But it should be qualified that there is actually no definitive evidence to say the benefits that have been presented are actually the benefits that are being provided. I think that NHS England has recently questioned whether all the benefits that have been cited have actually been realised yet. That's not to say that maybe in the future they will be, but certainly there's no definitive evidence that that those figures are actually correct. And if members want to check that, it's in the FT on the 22nd of July.
Thank you, Councillor Hart. Councillor Cox.
Chair, this debate is about trust. Every day, our residents trust the NHS with their health, the police with their safety, and this council with their voice. That trust is precious. Once it is given away, it's incredibly hard to win back. This motion doesn't ask us to reject technology. It asks us to remember something much more important. Technology must always serve democracy, not the other way round. It asks us to question whether greater dependence on a single supplier is really in the public interest. It asks whether competition, transparency, and accountability matter. And it asks whether we have the courage to speak up before dependency becomes irreversible. Now, some will say this motion is only a gesture, but every important change begins with someone prepared to say, this isn't good enough. Leadership isn't about waiting for someone else. Leadership is about drawing a line. So let's draw that line. Let's stand for public trust over private power. Let's stand for accountability over complacency. Let's stand for the people who elected us. I urge everyone to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. Councillor Swainston.
Thank you. I've got sort of, I mean, I agree that we should ensure that we send things that are factually accurate. So I don't know if there's any way we can do that, but if we could check the accuracy of all the statements that go into the motion before it's sent, then I think that would be really helpful. Quote sources, etc. I mean, there's obviously differences of opinion. Personally, I do not want Palantir having my data. You know, and I think a lot of residents of East Herts will feel that way. They don't want those people having access to their personal records, and it's pretty clear that in some cases they do. And I think it is of enormous worry. It is relevant to our residents, and actually East Herts do get involved with the NHS through our representation on the Health Scrutiny Body. So we are constantly there. And there are several, although only one from East Herts, there are several representatives here because some of us sit on Health Scrutiny for the County Council. It is absolutely of interest to our residents what is happening to their data, but I would like us to ensure that all the information we send in anything is accurate. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Swainston. Councillor Goldspink.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I would just like to say that most of us as residents in East Herts rely on the NHS. So if we use the NHS here in East Hertfordshire, this motion is relevant to us. Also, there's nothing to stop this district council sending a request to other outside bodies. We could send a petition, nobody would argue against that. So we're perfectly entitled to make our views known and to ask for certain things to be done or not to be done. I note that the BMA last year passed a formal resolution calling for the Palantir NHS contract to be cancelled. There's a break clause, I think, coming up in February. So the contract, they could vote to discontinue it. And I think, yes, that would be a very sensible thing to do. Some of the NHS staff report that this Palantir tool is slower than other standard tools. Yes, as Councillor Swainston has said, we do need to check all the facts very carefully before we send off our recommendation. But I do support the overall thrust and idea of this, that we're not happy with Palantir having all our data, and we would ask all the relevant people, we would urge them, please, to sever the contract next February. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Goldspink. Do we have any other questions or comments from members? Okay, seeing none, I'll hand it to Councillor Vicky Smith.
Thank you, Chairman. I will not go back over lots of the things, but Councillor Parsard-Wyatt spoke about campaigning against people who understand NHS data systems better than we do. But as Councillor Goldspink mentioned, the BMA themselves passed a motion calling for tighter checks on Palantir, calling for their local trusts to terminate existing contracts. These are doctors, these are people who work day to day in the NHS, and they recognise the threat here and are doing something about it. So that would be my final point on the matter, and I will hand back to Councillor Dar. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Vicky Smith and Councillor Dar.
So yes, we do have a representative on the Health Scrutiny Committee. So we're there to advocate and represent our residents, and we are all affected by this data, any breaches in data and the way it's stored, and the moral integrity of this company. As I said, I really believe all they're wanting to do is to suck money out. You know, if capitalism is to work effectively, we need a market. We don't want sole people being in charge of everything and be able to set the price they want. And we don't want innovation stifled. And in terms of the accuracy of the data, well, I think I particularly draw the concerns about it, I would draw your attention to the MPs on the Science, Innovation and Technology Committee. And I listened to the chair of that committee talk on the BBC and express her concerns about it. I think there's every day in the papers, I'm seeing concerns about Palantir raised. So I really feel this needs to go forward. In terms of the accuracy, I'm happy to work on the accuracy. I mean, I think there's some clear points there focusing on the NHS, looking at what the MPs committee said and the BMA said, and include those. I mean, in terms of that 350 million and whether it was properly procured, my understanding from what I've read is that Palantir were invited in at a very low cost. They put their hand up and said, we can do it in COVID. And then they had a competitive advantage over everyone else, and it was hard to compete against them. But I'm happy to drop that bit if you feel that's inaccurate, or I will research it myself further, because there is an organisation called MEDAC who's gone into all of this in great detail and gathering all the evidence together, so that can be sorted out. But I urge you all, for all the reasons that have been stated, to vote for this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dar. Members, the motion is set out on pages 132 to 135 of the agenda pack.
Sorry, Chairman, could I have a point of clarification?
Of course.
We seem to be being asked to vote on something that the executive member is then going to change afterwards. Well, we can't be doing that, because how do I know what we're actually voting on? I don't think that is acceptable. Could I ask for the legal officer to give us a ruling on that?
Hand it over to Jonathan Gill.
It is for members in this chamber. You have the wording in front of you. You have the council resolves to and the wording there. If there's a clarity, there could be a amendment put forward to it that you could then vote on, and if that was carried, it would then be incorporated and then vote on it as it is. If any member was so minded to do that, they may do that.
Sorry, Chairman. Point of order on, isn't it too late to do that, given the fact that we've gone full circle?
I believe so.
You haven't got to. I think. I mean, I could look on the thing at the moment. I think you haven't got to be voting on it yet. If this was if this and the member bringing this forward, if this was a point that was the member proposing it is bringing forward, and it would be helpful to this chamber, I think at the chair's agreement that could happen.
Okay. Are these points of order, points of clarification? Point of order, yes. Councillor Williams.
If I understand it, the text of the motion isn't actually the letter. The letter is to be drafted by the leader with some kind of instructions that we aren't particularly big fans of Palantir. So would that mean when we vote on the motion, should we pass it, it's not actually the motion that is the letter which is then sent to the people named. It's as the leader chooses to write it based upon what's.
Jonathan?
Yes, I was just, oh, thank you, and thank you for that intervention as well. I think the point that was just being brought to my attention, and I'm trying to follow the discussion as it's happening, is it appears that there is no point being raised of a change to the resolution itself. The resolution being the bit the council resolves to, and it's requests the leader to write to and to make a request of the Health Scrutiny Committee. I think this is just a bit of a debate about that background bit of information, which could be clarified outside of this. So I think if that was the point, I think that's what Councillor Williams is pointing out as well.
Yes. The way I interpret it as chair is that we have to take the motion as it is before us, and any sort of action to resolve, upon the leader, for example, the leader can take that as it is. Is this a more point of?
Yes.
Could you say when it's a point of order, just for clarity? Thank you, Councillor McAndrew.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. We had a motion put in front of us this evening, and it was presented to us, and the seconder seconded it and had the opportunity to make a decision. Then went to the proposer, who admitted it was factually incorrect. Now,
I'm not admitting it's factually incorrect. I said if it is.
Councillor McAndrew.
Yeah. So the fact that Councillor Alex Dar has indicated that it was not factually correct And she said she would look at it and rectify it. And Councillor Wiley's quite correct in saying you can't do that after it's been done. Now, we can't do it now because the proposer has closed the motion. So it's a motion that we've got in front of us that we are not 100% correct, that it is factual. And Councillor Angus, right.
Thank you, Councillor McAndrew.
And so I suggest that this be withdrawn.
Yes, I can't. We can't change the wording to the motion. Sorry, Jonathan Gill.
I think so. Sorry, and maybe I was confusing matters. I was not quite picking up on. It's the resolution. So the council's resolution, that element there, that element, to be clear, is to write to the following bodies, to write to the MPs, to inform these organisations of our extreme concern on behalf of all our residents. I won't repeat that, about the security of the data, escalating costs and so forth, to request the leader that responses are shared, and then the one about the request of the health scrutiny committee at HCC. I think I think from what I'm discerning is the disquiet in the chamber is about some of the background context information. And that is entirely for members to debate and discuss the veracity or your views on it. But could I draw attention to the resolution itself, which is to write and to act in those ways? And I think that I've not heard anything that is seeking to amend that. So you can move straight to that resolution. Any disagreement about any of the context to it, indeed, that can continue outside of this discussion. So I would advise to move to a vote on the resolution itself. I'm not hearing anything which is seeking to change that part of it.
Point of order. The debate finished with the proposal.
Yes.
And the proposal admitted. So we in this chamber have not had the opportunity to challenge.
I understand, Councillor McAndrew, but if I don't have a proposal to change the amendment, then I can't change.
Yes, we are not allowed to propose after she said it wasn't factual. So we are being asked to vote on something that is inaccurate. And
Can I go to Jonathan Gill again for clarification? Thank you.
I think I'm just going to reiterate, if I may, that the matter in hand, I realise this clearly. There's many views in the chamber, as one would expect, and there has been some back and forth, and the proposer has made some comments and such like. But we come now to the resolution the council resolves to, and those are the matters in hand. And it will be for members to vote accordingly on all the preceding conversation and debate and discussion as to form your views on whether you're for, against, or abstain from the resolution as it is there. And the resolution is quite specific. I think members probably have it in front of you. Is the council resolves to, and there's a series of bullet points. I think all the discussion that seems to be happening now, if I may, is again continuing the very healthy debate about some of the points in the background, which I think has concluded, and there are disagreements. I understand that. Obviously, everyone understands that. If we move to the resolution, I think that will move it forward.
Yeah, now the recording.
Councillor McAndrew, thank you. I'm very aware Councillor Holiban's been waiting a while. Is this the point of order?
Yes, it is a point of order, Chair. Thank you. And yes, I did have my hand up for a considerable amount of time before you recognised me. But I have many reservations about this motion that's here before us tonight.
I'm sorry, but the debate on the amendment has concluded now that we've got to the...
No, but my point of order is we shouldn't be discussing this any further. It should come back again with the updated information. That's what a motion is about. I can't vote for this with information that's not correct. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I can't do anything if no one brings up a proposal. Councillor Deering.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Well, I hear what Jonathan says, but with all due respect, I don't think you're meeting the point, Jonathan. If this motion as it stands is passed, it will be said that this motion has passed. The proposer of this motion has clearly and graciously acknowledged that some be neutral, that some of the factual content of this motion might not be right. We don't need the proposer to say today that some of the content of this proposal is wrong. She has acknowledged that some of it might be wrong. That's enough. We've heard a speaker to my left state in terms where the information is wrong, and the proposer has graciously acknowledged that it might be wrong. I don't see how we can possibly vote on this motion. It's accepted as being potentially inaccurate. It's nonsense.
Jonathan. Sorry. Were you seeking to clarify that?
Let me just check on something.
Okay, no.
I think it's. You can amend different parts of the.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to take an amendment, but no one's proposed such a thing.
Indeed, and you could restart that. I think it just strikes me, but it's whatever that there has through this debate been there has been discussion back and forth, and some things have been contested and discussed, and that is on the record there. What you have in front of you now is the resolution that you can come to a view on, informed by the debate as it is proceeded thus far.
Thank you. Councillor Glover-Ward.
I would like to propose that under Standing Order 3.21.1, item J, that the question now be put. I would like somebody to second us. We can vote on it and then we can vote on the motion.
Give me 1 second whilst I get the correct legal spiel.
I don't know what to get that in. Yeah, I know. Yeah. Well, the background information doesn't need to be included. It was for information.
Yeah, that is on the road. Thank you, members. Thank you, members.
I lost that.
Thank you, members, without that going adrift there. Thank you, Councillor Glover-Ward. Do you have a seconder for this? Councillor Watson, thank you. Do members have any questions or comments for this motion?
Point of order, Chair.
You have point of order. You have to go straight to a vote on it.
Apologies.
Point of order that is relevant to the vote. I'd like to request it be a recorded vote, please.
Do you have the support of 5 members? Okay, so just for clarification, is that the request of a recorded vote for the proposal that Councillor Glover-Ward has to go straight to the vote, or to that of the amendment? Oh, sorry, or to that of the motion. Apologies.
It's a recorded vote on the motion.
On the motion. Okay. So we've got to go straight to. We're going to have to go to the vote on to go straight to the vote. So could I have those members voting in favour for? No, this is just for clarity, members. We're currently voting on whether we skip straight to the vote, as has been proposed by Councillor Glover-Ward under the Constitution. That's a right that members have, and I have accepted that.
I'm sorry, Chair, but point of order, that is a guillotine motion. It's not discussed. It goes straight to the vote.
We're going to the vote on whether to go straight to the vote. Members, could I have those voting in favour for? This is not of the motion as a whole, just for clarity. And those voting against? And those abstaining? Thank you. Now we go back to the vote on the motion. I note Councillor Parsard-Wyatt's request for a recorded vote and member support, so we'll have to have a readout of members' names as we go through the motion. So I'll pass it over to Stephanie Tarrant for the vote now of the motion. Thank you.
So I'll go through the list of names and then if you could vote for, against or abstain on this one. So Councillor Adams.
For.
Councillor Andrews. Councillor Britton.
For.
Councillor Eric Buckmaster. Councillor Ruth Buckmaster. Councillor Burt.
For.
Councillor Butcher. Councillor Carter.
Abstain.
Councillor Clements.
For.
Councillor Connolly.
For.
Councillor Copley.
For.
Councillor Cox.
For.
Councillor Crystal.
For.
Councillor Dar.
For.
Councillor Deering.
For. Against. Just to be clear, that was an against.
Councillor Devonshire. Councillor Dumont.
I'm abstaining because there's questions over accuracy.
Councillor Estock.
For.
Councillor Glover Ward.
For.
Councillor Goldsmith.
For.
Councillor Hart.
For.
Councillor Hill. Councillor Hollybomb.
Against.
Councillor Holt.
Against.
Councillor Hopewell.
For.
Councillor Horner.
For.
Councillor Hoskin.
For.
Councillor Jacobs.
Abstain.
Councillor Jones.
Against.
Councillor Marlowe.
For.
Councillor McAndrew. Councillor Nichols.
For.
Councillor Passard Wyatt.
Against.
Councillor Redfern.
For.
Councillor Terry Smith. Councillor Vicky Smith.
For.
Councillor Stowe.
Against.
Councillor Swainston.
For.
Councillor Thomas.
Abstain.
Councillor Watson.
For.
Councillor Wilcox.
Abstain.
Councillor Williams.
I'm going to abstain because I want everything. I'm for, but I'm.
Thank you, Councillor Williams.
Councillor Wilcombe.
For.
And Councillor Wiley.
Okay, thank you. So we have 25 votes for, 13 against and 6 abstentions, so that motion is carried. Thank you very much, members, for thank you, members, for bearing with me with the procedural stuff that went on in that motion there. And then we go to motion number 12B, Rye Meads. I invite Councillor George Williams to present his motion on notice.
All right. I'll read the overview. So earlier this year, after conducting a review of its operations, the RSPB announced an intention to withdraw from the Rye Meads on the 30th of November 2026. Without new arrangements in place, the management of the site will fall to its owners, Thames Water. As the site is designated an SSSI and SPA and has Ramsar designation, it has afforded protections, and Thames Water are therefore obliged to manage it in accordance with those protections. Those protections, however, do not include public access, educational experiences, or visitor centres, and these facilities are vital to ensuring future interest in nature conservation for both local residents and visitors from further afield. As the district council in which this precious site is located, we must not risk losing the effort invested over decades in building the hides, bridges, walkways, ponds, and educational facilities, and we should instead make sure that that legacy continues to be built upon. So I ask that the council consider the following motion: that this council believes public access to Rye Meads must be maintained, that the council requests that its executive consider working with its partners, Thames Water, Herts and Middlesex Wildlife Trust, Broxbourne Borough Council, Hertfordshire County Council, the RSPB and the Lee Valley Regional Park Authority, and other interested voluntary organisations to produce a management framework that ensures the public are able to enjoy the site far into the future. That this council requests that the executive consider all practical options, included but not limited to financial commitments to achieve these aims, and to direct its officers to investigate options for the site to be maintained in the public domain. The executive is then requested to share any work on this matter with all members of the council as soon as possible.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Would Councillor Vicky Glover-Ward like to speak as seconder?
I second and I reserve my right to speak.
Thank you, Councillor Glover-Ward. Do we have any questions? Councillor Andrews.
What an excellent proposal. Very happy to support it.
Councillor Dumont.
Yeah, well, George, you know, I've attended the meetings that you spearheaded and helped arrange. When it says that the executive should consider working with all these bodies, I think what we really need is some kind of focal group. We need to know who's going to manage it. These are the practical things we need to start to, like who physically are going to be the people, who will they work for, who will they pay them that are going to be in there running the site. And we need to know how much this is going to cost, which perhaps is what a management framework means. Yeah, so we need to get some costings because that's a little bit, nobody seems to know. And I think Eric will know that from coming to the meetings. We couldn't really get to the bottom of that. I mean, I would say the impression, well, not the impression, the explicit information the SPB gave us is they're walking away. The explicit information that Thames Water gave us is they will only have funds for the minimum. Obviously, there's been worse news about them this week. So I think the important thing here is to really pinpoint and identify who is going to do this. How much is it going to cost so we can take some practical work forward to start getting grants, raising the money, seeing how much money we need to put in. Because that thing's going to close on the 20th of November, 30th of November. And yeah, once it's closed, getting it reopened is going to be double difficult, I'm afraid. So this needs to be hurried up with.
Thank you. Councillor McAndrew.
Thank you. Oh, well done. It's good to see that a member of the outside body and Lee Valley Regional Park has brought this forward, and really appreciate it.
Thank you. Councillor Eric Buckmaster.
Thanks, Chairman. Yeah, as Joe said, I attended. Ruth was there, Tim, along with George. There were the exec director from county, and Sarah Saunders was there as well, and others. I think the issue is that while the RSPB said that they highly value the site, that they were really saying that there are so many valuable sites and they just have to make a decision. And I think we were, as Joe was saying, we were trying to get to the bottom of actually what kind of money do they need to keep this going and how we do it. Now, finances are tight, whether it's East Herts or county. And I think we also made the point that had we known about this challenge a couple of years ago, or a few years ago, just as we have done with Hatfield Forest, we could have potentially put something in place whereby funding was available. So the real danger is that it can be maintained as a site, but it won't be open to the public. And of course, in order for the public to be admitted, we heard that Thames Water would take a very serious view around health and safety, and it would be virtually impossible to go around the site. So there is another meeting that's being arranged. I think we're being asked for dates to attend, and I think we should all pull together, but we really do need to know the score in terms of what's needed so we can work together. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Holt.
Thank you, Chairman. I don't want to repeat many of the points that have already been shared, but you know we very much share that concern regarding the RSPB's withdrawal from the reserve and any potential removal of public access that Eric just emphasised. And for us, public access to Ryde Meads must be maintained, and we would very much encourage the council to work with any of the relevant authorities to ensure this happens. So we can and we will be supporting this motion tonight. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Holt. Councillor Horner.
Thank you, Chair. Just briefly to say that as a member of Lee Valley Regional Park Authority and the executive, I did raise it at an executive meeting to get their support for the sort of approach that George is talking about, and they were very much open to that. So I hope that can also be a factor that pushes this forward. But I would also say that if there are further things that need to be done through Lee Valley, then I would be very happy to work with George. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Terry Smith.
Thank you, Chair. It's a good motion, George. Having seen my first kingfisher at Rymead, I'm very much in favour of this, and any way we can to keep this going would be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carter.
Thank you, and I'd like to thank George for bringing this motion. As a previous volunteer at the Nature Reserve on the schools side, I can attest to how valuable it was and how much the children coming from all over the area, sometimes from much more built up areas than ours, how much they got out of it, pond dipping and so on. So I think, and I also met a lot of the volunteers there again, who were very dedicated and allowed access to the general public for that site. So I think it's really, really important that we retain that public access. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Crystal.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks, George, for bringing this. It's really important. Members of the executive are obviously involved directly. Tim, I think Sarah, and others, Joe. I spoke to Mark Doran about this today. We take this very seriously. We want to work with partners as well as we possibly can. We want to see this kept open, and we will try and do that.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none. We go back to Vicky. Yes.
Thank you. I sat at Rymeads about 4 weeks ago with a group of a packed hut full of other people, all wondering at those kingfishers. But it isn't just the kingfishers; they are the ones that Rymeads is sort of famed for. There are numerous birds, including snipes, green sandpipers, shovelers, gadwells, and tug duck. And as such, I think that it is essential, especially for all of our residents, not just the children, not just the old, not just the disabled, not just the ordinary people, to be able to enjoy nature. I'm hoping that as an executive and led by hopefully George and the exec member for wellbeing, we can repeat the success that the exec member for wellbeing has managed to do with Ward Freeman along with the community to reopen Ward Freeman, which is going really well, and I can see the work there. What the governing body looks like, everything else, that is to be determined, and essentially obviously we need to know what the running costs are so that we can find out where we can beg, borrow and steal money. But at the end of the day, we are the ones that need to try, because this is so important for our residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Glover-Ward. We now go back to Councillor Williams.
Thank you, especially to Vicky, Tim, Joe, Eric and Ruth for coming along, and Vicky for helping edit this into something more effective. All right, I'm going to take it. Everyone likes Rymeads in this room, so if I'm allowed, can I'll very briefly try to put the case to someone outside the room who may have a bit of money or influence, with just a little story about when I used to work at nature reserves up at Falmere, just north of Royston. I used to work out of a little visitor's hut, and alongside the hut, the main entrance to the path to the reserve came through the little path, and opposite that path was a little post. And my manager, when he was there, he would put bird food on the post so he could watch them. Birds are messy, and I noticed that they would knock it down and little voles would come up. So what I would do is I would bait the floor by the post and get the little voles to come. And when people would walk up the path as they entered the reserve, old people, young people, families with kids, I'd say stop and then look at the post. And then I'd look at the post and they'd be amazed. And they'd be on the floor taking pictures, trying to creep up. you know, as quickly as they can to see these little tiny little voles, these brilliant little animals. Now, I figured when I was there that for some of them would have been the first time that they kind of learnt that nature was a real tangible thing worth appreciating. And I think that, especially for some of the younger ones, that's probably the first time they kind of realised they had a stake. That all this brilliant, beautiful stuff that I haven't really seen before is actually at risk of disappearing. And I think if you're going to reverse the decline in nature in the UK, you need people to feel like they have a stake. And these sites, the volunteers and the staff that work on them, provide them the opportunity to feel that. And that's why I think it's so important that not just this council, but Thames Water and Vauxhall and everyone else named really comes together to preserve that access. Because if you are going to reverse the decline, you have to give people the opportunity to realise what they are missing.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Members, the motion is set out on pages 136 to 137 of the agenda pack. Could we have a show of hands of whether you are in favour for? Thank you. And those against? And those abstaining? Thank you. That motion is carried. And now we go on to agenda item 12C, socio-economic duty. I invite Councillor Calvin Horner to present his motion on notice.
Okay, thank you, Chair. This motion is straightforward in asking the Executive to actively consider adopting the socio-economic duty contained in the 2010 Equality Act when drawing up the revised equality strategy later this year. As such, it gives a strong steer to the Executive and to officers, especially as the equality strategy will be coming to full council for approval. We are all familiar, I think, with the provisions of the 2010 Equality Act, which codified earlier equalities legislation and outlined the 9 protected characteristics such as age, disability, gender, etc. that we're familiar with, and which feature in the equality impact assessments that accompany all council reports. But unlike the sections regarding those protected characteristics, Section 1 has never been enacted in England. That is, it has never been made a requirement for public authorities like East Herts District Council. And I believe this is a serious omission, as this duty would underpin our work to promote the well-being of those specific groups that are mentioned in the protected characteristics by providing a responsibility to consider the effect of our decisions on those suffering disadvantage irrespective of their background or their characteristics. So Section 1 of the 2010 Act states, an authority to which this section applies, including district councils, must, when making decisions of a strategic nature about how to exercise its functions, have due regard to the desirability of exercising them in a way that is designed to reduce the inequalities of outcome which result from socio-economic disadvantage. Now, the duty doesn't preclude or impose any particular policy options. There are many policy stances that would tackle socio-economic disadvantage, and this forms an essential part of the political debate that we all have. Neither would its voluntary adoption impose a specific financial burden on East Herts Council. It should be noted that the duty has been enacted in both Scotland in 2018 and Wales in 2021. And whilst it has not been placed on local authorities in England by law, it is open for individual councils to adopt it voluntarily. Now, research conducted very recently by an organisation called Resolve Poverty has shown that around 10% of councils in England have formally adopted the social economic duty, with a further 51% indicating they are working in the spirit of the duty. Now, this latter group includes Uttlesford, South Cambridgeshire and St Albans, to name just 3 local examples. The government has indicated that they intend to enact the duty at some point in the future, and a pledge to do so was included in the 2024 Labour manifesto, and this has been reaffirmed recently by government ministers. However, given that East Herts is commencing work to renew the equality strategy now, in my view, it makes sense to prepare for voluntary adoption rather than wait until some undetermined point in the future. I also believe that it is important that the needs of those facing disadvantage are considered in our strategic decision making as soon as is practicable. I therefore hope that this motion will be supported across this chamber so that we can further demonstrate our commitment laid out in the corporate plan, which we reviewed and was unanimously voted for this evening, to be a fair and inclusive council. So I commend this motion to the Chamber. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Horner. Would Councillor Miriam Swainston like to speak as seconder?
Thank you. I'll second and reserve my right. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Swainston. Do we have any questions and comments? We'll go Councillor Dunn and Councillor Eric Buckmaster.
Thank you, Chair. As the Executive for Communities, I welcome the discussion on adopting a socio-economic duty and acknowledge that despite East Hart's strong district-wide averages, pockets of hidden poverty persist. And indeed, this motion does align to our corporate plan commitment to being fair and inclusive. I think it'd be useful to just point out some elements that to consider when deciding on this motion. So the council can choose to adopt an equivalent duty voluntarily. There's no legal obligation. So voluntary duty would not create legal obligations. It would act as a policy commitment and consider socioeconomic impacts in major decisions, be flexible and amendable through normal governance processes. And the benefits of this would be better understanding of local inequalities and hidden deprivation, more informed decision making, support for preventative approaches, and greater transparency. There are some challenges and practical implications. There may be additional officer time for preparing reports, a need to update templates and equality impact assessments, and training for staff and councillors. We need to ensure that adequate evidence is available to assess impacts. The duty does not require every decision to reduce inequality, nor does it block difficult financial decisions. It simply requires conscious consideration. So the conclusion I have is that we're not legally required to implement this duty, but voluntary adoption could strengthen our strategic decision-making, support fairness and inclusion, and improve transparency. It would not create new legal rights, but would reinforce the Council's commitment to reducing inequality and supporting disadvantaged residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Eric Buckmaster.
Thank you, Chairman. I think it's a clear and concise motion, and I think it's good to put down a marker of intent now, especially as we're heading towards a unitary, as we will be. It can fit in with some of the things that we've been working on over the years, so it might be well to revisit the health and wellbeing strategy, social prescribing. We've looked at whole systems approaches to obesity, access to nature, interfaith. There are lots and lots of aspects to this whereby we can maybe revisit and sense check against this. And there will be some benefits to being in a unitary. I know we've probably been aghast at what's facing us, but actually bringing things like public health and environmental health together will actually help, because it actually brings more of the elements into play. We really must get control of the proportion of affordable housing, because people do need to actually have really good accommodation, and we've got to fight back from the developers who are using their viability to try and get those figures down. And ultimately, we want people to have opportunities to be physically and economically active, have good quality of housing, and be socially involved in their communities where they can also make a positive contribution. So I think there are things we can look at. There'll be some new things, some old things, but let's revisit and make sure we're prepared. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Estop.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, thank you, Marvin, for bringing this motion. I think it's very welcome. The Equality Act is our legislative foundation for fairness and opportunity. As a councillor for a ward with housing, education, financial and health deficiencies, which are definitely disguised by average statistics, I welcome this principle and support its adoption. I know there will be implications which have to be looked at carefully by executive in terms of staffing and resourcing, But yes, support its adoption within the equality strategy when that's revised.
Thank you. Do we have any further questions or comments? Okay, seeing none. Members, the motion... Oh, apologies. We're going back to Councillor Swainston. Sorry.
Thank you. I'm encouraged by the positive response. I think a lot of, I think disadvantage is often hidden here. I think it showed up when we had the workshops for the new district plan, actually, and we actually saw the maps of areas of deprivation. I think it was quite shocking. And as a former teacher, it was so obvious the impact on education and how that feeds forward then into the jobs and everything. So yeah, I'm urge everybody to support this.
Thank you. And now back to Councillor Horner.
Okay, thank you, Chair, and thank you for the supportive comments that have been made. When it comes to the issue of hidden deprivation, and we have that in a lot of our wards, I was made starkly aware of that only today, actually, looking at statistics which show that the attainment levels of children with who are in receipt of free school meals in East Herts are actually lower than they are of equivalent pupils in other districts in Hertfordshire, and that is because in those other districts they form a larger part of the population and are catered for, whereas here in East Herts they are hidden and are not catered for, and they fall even further through the cracks. So I do think it's important, even in a district that is relatively wealthy and has low deprivation, that we do look into the needs of those who are suffering it. I think Eric makes a very good point when he talks about putting down a marker for LGR, and that was certainly part of my thinking when I brought this forward. And I think it is something that we do need to look at in the round in terms of additional resourcing that might be required and how we implement it, which is why this is not a prescriptive way of doing this, but a way of bringing this onto the agenda of the executive. So thank you very much for your supportive comments, and I will leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Horner. Now we go to the vote. Members, the motion is set out on pages 138 to 139 of the agenda pack. Could we have a show of hands whether you were in favour for? Thank you. And those against? And those abstaining? Thank you. That is carried. Members, that concludes tonight's business. I declare the meeting closed at 9:02. Thank you.